So welcome everyone. My name is Gilles and welcome to adding multimedia to your course. So today we're gonna do a couple of things. So probably I hope that you had a chance to join us in the earlier steps of this series. Which step are those? Let me just switch over to that slide. So we are on step number 3, developing. So hopefully at this point you had a chance to plan out your content. And you've had a chance to really break things down. I'm a big fan of breaking my course down before I actually start building it inside of Brightspace. It is possible, hopefully that will not happen to you, but probably it will happen to you at some point in your career at Ottawa U, that you might get a course assigned to you at the last minute. So it's always nice if you had a chance to kind of plan things out. And by planning things out, things like what's the title of my page? What content will be there? How do I want to break it down? Is there any videos? Is there any audio? Is there any images and things along those lines? So with that said, let me just show you that I did exactly the same thing. So I will be walking you through a small example to start off today. So I have everything. If you can see, it's a pretty busy screen, but I have on the right hand side, I've got everything ready to copy and paste inside of Brightspace. By the way, this is me. Hello everyone. If you know me, I see you, Dina. Um, Otherwise, you also have my email. So if you have any questions, everybody has different sort of, technology in hand. We'll talk about my choices. They're not all of the choices. There's way too many choices to really think about. But if you have anything, let me just see this. So if you have anything in terms of preferred software that maybe you'd like to use, just give me a quick email and then we'll go through those options. Again, I will not recommend anything in particular. I will give you my sort of a few applications, but if you have any questions, at the bottom of the presentation on the left-hand side, you do have the PowerPoint slide deck that I have on screen now. And all the resources that I will mention are there with links. Of course, if you have any resources that you would like to evaluate or something, then go for it. I'm just going to give you some guidelines, maybe some best practices on what you can use, but by no means is it the only thing that you have at your discretion. So let's start by a couple of things. Today we're going to do a couple of things. Let me just go into the session outline and we'll start talking about these things here. So the plan today is to go from images to multimedia. So we'll cover video, we'll cover things like choices of camera and audio, and things of that nature. Of course, if you don't have to create all of the content yourself, well, that's great. So we will start with trying to leverage whatever is possible. If there's anything in terms of existing video, lots of different sources. You probably know YouTube, and there's many more. Vimeo is another one, and so on and so forth. So all great sources if you can find things. My first example will cover the basics. We'll cover adding images, adding video, and we'll talk about a couple of things like that. In terms of best practices and stuff, I'll try to cover them as we go. There's not that many. There's really things like the choice of format. That's one that gets a lot of people trying to upload things that Brightspace will not support, like an MOV from an Apple product. So we'll talk about those kinds of things. But really, in terms of best practices, I would say if there's two file formats that you want to remember that you'll have no problem with, it's MP4. MP4 is basically the favorite for video out there right now. So if you have the option of saving as an MP4, you can't go wrong. And the same thing with MP3 for audio only. So really, those are the two that I would recommend that you try to use more often. I'm getting some comments of speaking a little bit louder. I think that it's Hopefully it's okay now. I'll try to get a little bit closer to my mic. So the idea, so again, we try to leverage things that we can find on the internet, if at all possible. If not, then we'll see a couple of options. We'll see a couple of options. Other than that, we probably might have to create our own content. And I will sort of talk about cameras. I will talk about things of that nature. Again, cameras are great these days because, well, you can do two things with them. You can use them to record content that you can place inside of Brightspace. And of course, you can also use them to run your course live. So if you want to do a little bit of both, maybe have some live session going through Adobe Connect or Teams or something like that, then you can leverage basically the same technology that you could use to record as well. So, you know, again, I will talk about a few things along those lines. Again, if you have any questions, please send me a quick email. And also, if you download the PowerPoint presentation, on the very last slide, there's the TLSS contact info. So if you have any questions, again, you know, send them our way and we will, well, we'll gladly help you. So let's get started. So again, in terms of best practices, just before we get started on our first example, just a couple of things that I wanted to cover real quick. Let me switch over to my browser right now. So in my browser, there's a couple of things, again, you know, that I don't want, that we're seeing more and more, that maybe you might want to try to kind of deal with before you get started. Now, one thing that we are seeing is bandwidth issues. Now, again, if you're using a camera and you're going to be broadcasting, you're going to be streaming yourself, one thing that you might want to investigate is if there's any dead spots, you know, where you plan to actually put your final to deliver your course. If you have a nice little corner that you like, you might want to check, you know, whether it's a dead spot for Wi-Fi. So you don't want to, you know, have that happen to you at the very last moment. So the first thing that I will recommend to you is this thing. If you've never seen speed test before, again, you know, the scenario would be you're planning to broadcast, you're planning to do your course live. You found a nice little quiet area of your house, but check whether you have good Wi-Fi coverage in that spot. Otherwise, you might have some surprises. So the first thing is speed test. I will run speed test. Not usually something you want to do while you're doing a webinar, but hopefully it will work out for us. So again, I'm trying not to talk just to make sure that it doesn't cut out. It'll take a few seconds. So again, a speed test basically has two components to it, your download speed and your upload speed. Now your download speed is important if you're watching Netflix, but really it's your upload speed that you're really trying to get up there. You don't want to have any surprises. Again, you know, many people are using the internet, you know, using Zoom and things of that nature. So, you know, that's the one that you might sort of get a surprise. So for now, my download speed is quite nice, but my upload speed is really quite low. I'm supposed to get 50, and I'm getting 15. Now, some of it is because I'm running a webinar at the same time, so that, you know, of course complicates issues as well. But anything above 2 megabit, you should be okay in terms of streaming your camera. But again, you know, it's more for a comparison than an absolute number. Just make sure that wherever you're planning to do your broadcasting from is not, again, in your Wi-Fi dead spot. So that's the first thing. Now, the other thing, which I mentioned, you know, there's two file formats that will be your darlings when you're dealing with anything really, but with Brightspace in particular. And it's MP3 for your audio and MP4 for your video. Now, if you find yourself with a different format than those, A lot of people have started doing things like welcome messages, and they're using their iPhones to do it. Now, if you wind up with a recording from an iPhone, sometimes you get the MOV file format. Now, that's a file format that has existed on the Mac platform for about 25 years. So it's quite common, but unfortunately, it's not, it's not PC friendly as well. So that's something that you need to keep in mind as well. So if you need to convert from something to something else, the first thing that I will recommend to you, let me drag that next shortcut on your screen, is something called Handbrake. Weird icon, unfortunate name, but it's quite powerful software, and it's completely free, runs on the Mac and the PC. So if you have MOVs and you like the way you're recording yourself, let's say you're recording yourself with your phone, you're happy with the product, but you try to upload it to Brightspace and you can't get Brightspace to accept it, then definitely Handbrake is something that will become your friend, and it will allow you to convert pretty much anything to anything. But what you're really concerned about is converting over to MP4. So basically anything you can plug into it, you can probably convert it to an MP4. So that's the first one on the list. Again, if you look at your PowerPoint presentation, if you've downloaded that, actually, I'm not going to use it a lot during this presentation, but I'm just going to outline that the resources have links to all of the software and the products that I'm going to mention. But like I mentioned, I'm not a fan of dictating what you use. Basically, what you use is what you're comfortable with, what you have at hand. But again, I'm going to give you some recommendation, but feel free to use other products, but those would be useful as well. So other than that, I think that's pretty much it. Now, in terms of cameras and stuff, of course, you might want to use, you might be looking into a camera, maybe to use in the fall. You might be considering using the camera inside of your laptop. Now, I'm actually going to recommend another route that you can do. I'm actually using my phone as a camera. I'm going to present two pieces of software that allows you to do that. Basically turn your camera into a high quality webcam. It works pretty well. If you're using your laptop, again, go for it. Just make sure that you have good lighting, because that's the one thing that the cheaper cameras tend to not do so well, is in low light situation, you tend to get grainy and pixelated and stuff. So that's the one recommendation for that. So let me switch my camera off and let's go back and let's do the very first example that we'll do today. Again, we're sort of ramping things up from the easy to the more complex. The easy, well, the use of images. So we'll start there inside of Brightspace. So I have a brand new Brightspace shell just for this webinar. Actually, one thing that I'm going to show you, it's something that sort of surprised us, and you might actually be sort of intrigued by that. There's a new functionality that has existed in Brightspace for quite a while, but it was used mostly to give feedback to your users. So if your student answered a certain question or had an assignment or something and you wanted to give them feedback, you could do so by typing something. You could send them an audio note, and you can also send them a video note. So in terms of video note, this is one that is that is quite nice. It's been improved. So we do have the version on steroids now inside of Brightspace. So I'm going to go into my overview page. So this would be a good example of using this to give sort of a welcome message to your student. So in the overview page, anywhere where you have a text field. So you're probably quite aware, if you've played in Brightspace before, of using this text box here. So inside of the text box, you can actually type whatever you want. You can insert images, you can insert many things. But one thing that I wanted to show you was this one. If you click on the very first icon, the insert stuff, there is an option to create a video note. Now the video note, actually, you're going to see exactly what it does as soon as I click on it. This is exactly what it does. So it allows you to record basically from your webcam. So whether it's the webcam that's built into your laptop or an external camera like I'm using, it's quite simple to use. You can see the result of it now. Before we were limited to 3 minutes, so it's kind of hard to do something in 3 minutes. But 30 minutes is actually quite reasonable. So you could do an intro. You could actually do your course as well, as long as you break it into segments. Hopefully you don't have too much, more than 30 minutes, but that's the idea. So I'm gonna do this. I don't usually do this because I'm a little bit paranoid because I'm recording the recorder type of thing, but I've done a test and it seems to work, just to give you an idea of what it actually looks like. So right now I have an option of creating a new recording. You can see my webcam right now. There's a couple of things. The first time that you use this feature, you will probably get some kind of warning saying, is it okay to use your camera and to use your video camera on your laptop? Just go ahead and say yes, and then you should be fine from this point on. So this requires no installation whatsoever, no special software, no nothing. Whatever camera is built in or plugged in should be recognized. So I will click new recording. I'm not gonna record too long. New recording. It's just to show you what it kind of looks like. I'm not gonna record. You get well, it plays back, so you can re-record yourself if you're not happy with this. If you're happy with the recording, you go ahead and click next. You can give it a title, description. I'm just gonna give it the title, of course, and the description of desk. It actually does not show up on the page. I'm going to choose the audio language as well. So I'm going to do, I don't know if it has English Canada here. And you can actually automatically generate captions from the audio. Now, I've not tested this extensively. It is sort of an interesting feature, of course, because whenever we use media, especially when you're using video and audio, you're supposed to have sort of an alternate text version of that. So this will actually do it. You're going to get a message saying that it's compressing, so it might take a little while if you have a longer passage. But basically, you go next, and it will actually auto-generate the closed captioning for your video. So this is the message that I mentioned, saying that it's going to take a while until it's ready and things like that. And I'm just going to go insert. So you can see it right now. If I scroll down, it wasn't quite ready. Let me just hit update. There we go. So a couple of things I'm not super happy with that you would have to go into the code to adjust the width and those kinds of things. But I mean, out of the box, it works quite well. Again, no software required. It will use your built-in camera. So again, just a little, give it a shot. See if you like it. Again, you can't go wrong. It doesn't require any software, and it's a good way to test your camera as well. So with that said, let me go ahead and launch into the very first example of today. So again, the idea is to take you from the easiest ways to implement things by images using text all the way to the more complex. So I'm going to actually go to my table of content here in my new class. Like I mentioned, I have all of this sort of pre-digested off screen so that you don't have to watch me copy and paste too much. So I've decided to do a couple of things. Again, I'm just going to create a module. So we're going to do filmmakers today. It's just a little mock course. So I'm going to click and create my first module. So the first module, so I might be, a couple of ways to break down content inside of Brightspace. A lot of people do it by the week. I'm going to put like general themes of the course and then break it down into weeks. So it gives me sort of two levels of granularity, let's just say. So inside of this module, we might be a couple of weeks. So the first week, I'm going to create a sub module. So this is for the week of September 7th to the 14th. Again, just a fictitious date here. So let's go ahead and create this inside of this module here. So inside of that week, we're going to be talking about David Lynch. Again, this is just a mock course, but again, you can follow, some of those things in your own course as well. So we're going to do a couple of things. I'm just going to create a title. So we're going to create images and stuff like that. But again, I'm just doing a very simple scenario here. I'm going to put all of this inside of the description field. There's a lot of different ways to build things inside of Brightspace. I'm just giving you one way. So the idea is that inside of the description field, we're going to tell them exactly what they need to get out of this this module, any activities, any readings that they need to do, any activities as well. So let me just click on the description. So inside of the description, I'm going to put my title for this week. So like I mentioned, it's going to be about David Lynch. I'm going to do some formatting, and again, I'm more concerned about accessibility, so I'm more about structuring the content in terms of using it on a screen reader. All of the accessibility technologies, whether it's a screen reader, whether it's a braille reader, will be looking for structure of your page, not so much whether something is red, something is blue, because it's hard to differentiate them and to figure out what your intent is. But if you limit yourself to things like heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, and you don't see that on your screen. I'm actually clicking on paragraph and there's actually a screen that drops down. Maybe I can show you this by switching to another full monitor. Again, it's a little bit smaller, so just bear with me for a sec. I just want to make sure that you knew that, it's inside here. So for some reason, it's not, showing that. So let me go back, and again, this usually is the most important thing on the page. So usually heading 1 will be given to that. So I will go to the next level in terms of structure. Again, you're building a hierarchy of content. So this is going to be an H2, which is the next one after the H1. So the thing about David Lynch is he's quite iconic, and it's mostly because of his hair. So, something, to sort of put it into, to introduce the student to him, we can probably do it a lot quicker by using a picture with him with his hair. So I'm going to show you what I'm going to use. I will also show you a couple of sources while I'm at it. I'm just not going to put in some images without telling you where I took them. This is one that you might want to bookmark. So Wikimedia Commons, lots of royalty-free usage image there of high quality as well. I like this image, nice and large. So I've already downloaded this image. Again, we don't want to get into the usage rights. Try to make sure that you have permission to use those images. So try to take them either from sources that are royalty-free or things of that nature. So this is the image that I'm planning to use. Let me go ahead and drag it. I already have it right off screen, so I'm going to use it there. So again, a couple of icons that we're going to cover today. If you don't know them, insert image is the next one. Remember the first one, insert stuff, had insert video that we saw before, so quite useful there. So, but in this case, I want to insert an image. I'm going to insert an image from my computer. Like I mentioned, I already have it downloaded, so I'm just going to drag it and drop it right here. And I will click add. So this is the first thing that you need to consider when it comes to using images, is providing alternative text. So the idea is that if the user is blind, what description should be read to them? Now, a good description would be, well, you can recognize David Lynch by his iconic hair. Maybe that would be a good description. Now, the description I'm actually going to use is not the best. So, if anything, I'm giving you an example of maybe what not to do, because I don't think that to a person that is blind, the name David Lynch, photo of David Lynch, and the date would be extremely useful. But again, it's an example of maybe not what not to do. I would rather write, a picture of David's iconic hair, so that they know, that there's something in the image that should be remembered. that David Lynch has, well, iconic hair. Now, if you don't want to provide text, again, you should. In all situations, you should provide text for images that you use. But for some images, and you'll see one image right after, I'm going to use an icon. And really, I don't think the icon really needs to be mentioned to the student with disability. So in that case, maybe you might want to flag that the image is decorative. So in this case, I want this textual description to be read to the user with a screen reader. But in other situations where really the image provides maybe a visual separation or something that you might want to just skip over when it comes to in terms of accessibility. So it doesn't need to be read to the person with a screen reader because it is more for visual sort of, again, you might want to say, well, why would you use an image when, it really doesn't, add to anything? But sometimes you might want to put a line, you might want to put a bar of color. And really, the user with disability doesn't really need to know that there's a bar of color there. So that would be an example of an image that's decorative. So alternate text, I have that, again, referred to as alt tags in a lot of different softwares. So I'm going to click OK. Let's go ahead and create a new file. Awesome. So we're on our way. So let me scroll down and continue this. So I'm going to put my learning outcomes again. Always nice to know why the student is doing an activity. So I will definitely not forget those. Now, since I used an H2 for this one here, heading 2, I'm going to use the next level down in terms of hierarchy, which would be an H3. Just going to put a break here. So this is not supposed to be part of the H3, so I'm going to put this back to paragraph. So we've got our learning outcomes. Let's continue down. Now, I would like to tell the student how long the activity will take. Again, again, a good recommendation because sometimes, something might be an hour long. They have to watch a documentary or something. It's nice for them to be able to plan their time. So in this case, I'm going to tell them how long approximately this whole module will take. So in order to put my next image in that information, I will go ahead and use a table in this case. So I'm going to click on table and I'm going to make a very simple table in this case. So basically 1 row and 2 cells. Now, in terms of using tables, you can use them to put your graphics inside. Try not to use them to position things on your page. It's a little bit of an accessibility no-no because tables are technically used to present tabular data. So when a screen reader sees a table, it tries to interpret it like it is a tabular list of information, not something that you're using to keep your images in place. So it's a little bit of a no-no, but usually it's okay if you can read the table from top to bottom, left to right, and it's not complex. So if you read the left cell followed by the right cell, it will be fine. So this is, again, a very simple table. So I'm not going to, you shouldn't try to put like French and English and tables within tables. You're just asking for trouble in terms of accessibility. So I'm going to place my cursor in the first cell and go ahead and place my first image in here. So I'm going to use the same thing that I used before, insert image from my computer. And again, I have a list of icons. You can also find some in Brightspace, things that you can reuse. It's always nice, definitely for yourself, you want to reuse things as much as possible so that the student builds basically an understanding of what is what and looks for those things, as waypoints. Down your page. So in this case, it's a picture of a clock. I don't think it's really necessary that the student with disability would be told that it's an image of a clock. So in this case, I'm going to say that this image is just decorative. So I've got my image. I'm going to go ahead and scale that down just a little bit. It's a little bit big, but again, it stands out. I'm gonna put my time, like I said, I wanted to put the amount of time that the activity will take. I'm trying to do this quickly. It's not fun copying and pasting when somebody's watching you. So other than that, let's move on. So again, learning outcomes. I have a nice little icons that tells them how long the activity will take. Following this, they need to watch something. So that's where we're getting a little bit more exciting. Not that images are not exciting, but we're getting towards video now. And the first use of video, which is, well, video that you can find off YouTube. And a couple of things that I'm going to mention here as well. So I'm going to format this the exact same way. So it's the same level of importance as the learning outcomes. Or you might say, well, no, it's less. But in this case, I think I will make it an H3 as well, so that it stands out at the same thing. So here's the learning outcomes. Here's what you need to watch. And I'm just gonna, just for the sake of completeness, we're not gonna really go there, but I'm just gonna put the very last thing, which is sort of like a reflection activity or something at the very end. And I'm gonna just format it the same way. Again, not choosing fonts, just basically structuring the content. So again, learning outcomes, we know how long the activity takes. We know that they need to watch a video, and there's the time for the video followed by an activity. And that is it for the description field of this. So let me just click on update. So far it looks like this. Again, I'm dealing with a smaller screen size, so it doesn't look great, but it doesn't look bad. So let me scroll down. So we've got module 1, and this is the first week in module 1. We've got the title, we've got a nice picture of David Lynch, we've got learning outcomes, we've got the time necessary for the activity. They know what they need to do, they need to watch, then it's followed by an activity. If there was reading, you might want to put readings in there as well. And you might want to replicate this format from week to week so that they know sort of the structure of the course and they know what to expect. So let's go ahead and put the very first video. So that's going to give us a chance to talk a little bit about video. Again, I'm a fan of creating my own, but of course, it takes a little bit more time from you to create your own video. So definitely, if you can leverage things off the internet, regardless of this, well, not regardless of the source. This is one that I'm going to link to. This is already on YouTube. So if you've never done this before, most sites that let you link to videos have the same sort of format. There's usually some kind of way to share the video, and really that's what I'm looking for. So I did, let's say, a search. I found this documentary that I would like to use, and I will click on the share right here. So you're looking for something like that. So this is the link that I'd like to bring inside of Brightspace. Usually Brightspace will be looking for the HTTPS, the secure connection. Sometimes when you put a link to an HTTP, sometimes you get warnings and stuff. So, again, but that could be the culprit. It happens in some cases. Notice that you can actually start this not at the very beginning, but you can start this along the way. So let's say you're referring to a video and you really want your student to watch the last 20 minutes of the hour and not the entire thing. You can actually jump them directly there. You can also give them a textual description of what to do, but it doesn't hurt if you do that. And you can see that it only adds a few things to the end that shows where it's actually jumping. So in my case, I want them to go to the very beginning, so I'm not going to do this. I'm just going to copy the link, close this, and we're back into Brightspace. So again, I'm going to put all my media right underneath, and all of the descriptions are, well, in the description field. So I'm going to say create or upload here, or upload create. In this case, I would like to add video or audio. So again, you could do an MP3 possibly, maybe a podcast. Maybe you decided to record yourself in audio only format and you'd like to have your lecture that way. Good. As long as there's a narrative, usually it works quite well. if you don't need visual support, or maybe you want to do both. It's always appreciated by the students as well. So video or audio is what I'm going to choose. Two options here. I can either link to a web video. So that's exactly what I have. I actually have a URL that I can copy and paste here. The other option on the other side is to upload. So let's say you recorded yourself either with your own camera or you recorded yourself with your phone. You actually have a physical video. So you have an MP4 video that you would like to upload into Brightspace. Well, this is exactly where you need to be. You can see that you can drag and drop it right in the middle area of your screen here. Cool. And there's also a little note about the size. So you're limited to 1 gigabyte. It's actually quite big. If you get anything that doesn't fit inside of Brightspace, you might be doing something wrong in terms of compression, in terms of format, because usually 1 gigabyte is quite large. Just to give you a reference, if you're doing HD video for about an hour and 15 or something, you would be very close to the 1 gigabyte. So again, HD footage, approximately an hour and 15 minutes, an hour and a half, you would be close to the 1 gigabyte. If for some reason, whatever you've done does not fit within those constraints, the first software that I mentioned before, let me go ahead and just bring it up real quick. Handbrake, our friend Handbrake. Handbrake lets you alter the compression. So the more compression, the smaller the file. The crappier it looks too. So usually you don't want to apply too much compression, but sometimes you might have to apply enough compression to get under that limit. But again, you know, you might want to structure your course with multiple 20-minute segments. You know, definitely it's to your benefit and to the students' benefit to not have an hour and a half. So, you know, my recommendation, maybe 20 minutes followed by an activity or reading or something like that would be ideal. But again, I'm not the judge. You guys are building your own course, but usually 1 gigabyte is quite large. So let's go to the left. The left lane is where we're going to put our embed code. Let me go ahead and place this. I'm just going to change the title. I don't like the title that it's putting there. So let me paste the title. Same title I was using above, so it's easy for the student to see. Let me click on the save button, which was barely on screen, and the video link has been added. So again, in terms of copyright, it's always okay to link the things on the web. So you know, if you're saying, well, you know, Gilles, the video is not, I don't want them to watch the entire thing. I'd like to download it. I'd like to cut it up, maybe show a portion of it. That's where you get into the gray area in terms of, you know, of copyright and ownership and stuff like that. Definitely, you can always ask whoever the owner of the video is whether you can do that. And if you get permission, then hey, you know, you can go for that. But you know, for this one, I'm not going to go there. I'd rather avoid those discussions. So I'm just linking to something that's freely available off YouTube. So again, we've got our example. We've got maybe not go all the way to the table of content, but let's say module 1. So we've got module 1, American filmmakers, and then we've got things broken into weeks. Inside of module 1, we've got inside of the description, we've got a nice title, we've got a nice image, again, well structured, and at the very bottom we have our video. Video is nicely running full page inside of Brightspace as well. So this is the first example that I wanted to cover in terms of not soup to nuts, but you know, to get sort of like to cover the basics of inserting images. Again, images are fairly simple to do. Video, not so much more difficult to do, especially if you're leveraging things that are pre-existing on the web. And of course, we are ramping things up to the more complex of creating our own. And that, of course, has all kinds of other things that we need to talk about. So this is the example. Let me switch back to PowerPoint. And let's go into our outline here. So So we've used images. We've leveraged video that we have on the web again, so we don't have to deal with copyright issues and things of that like that. In terms of limitations and best practices, we've covered a few of those. Limitation: 1 GB. Yeah, one gigabyte for your video. It's quite large. Again, you know, if you're hitting that mark, you might want to cut things up, or you might want to maybe apply more compression, but you should be fine for most applications. And we'll see a couple of things. So let's talk about webcams and things of that nature. Again, webcams quite useful these days, not only to record content to be placed inside a Brightspace, but to use with doing live lectures. So whether you're going to be using Zoom, whether you're going to be using Adobe Connect, or you're going to be using Microsoft Teams, having a good quality camera definitely is worth it's worth the cost these days. So you have a couple of things. Again, you know, like I mentioned before, good lighting is usually, I would recommend that. Don't do that in the dark, because, you know, again, the lower quality cameras tend to not do so well in low light situations. So the more light you can throw at it, the higher the quality. And also keep in mind, like I mentioned before, we started off with the speed test. The internet speed will change the quality of your video as well. So you might have noticed that before. Whenever you're streaming video across the internet, usually whenever the bandwidth is affected, either because other people in the home is using the internet at the same time, or maybe just, you know, in the neighborhood, everybody's using Zoom for meetings and stuff like that. Just something that you might want to test before you start doing your courses. If it affects your internet speed, it might affect the quality of your feed, because usually the way it works on the internet is that it always favors keeping the quality of your audio, because if the audio stutters, that's something that we really can't deal well with. But grainy video, we're kind of used to, you know, the pixelated look and stuff like that. So usually when the bandwidth lower or lessens, you will see that your video will get more pixelated. So just keep that in mind. So in terms of limitation, in terms of bandwidth, best practices, again, if you're dealing with MP3s for your audio, MP4 is easy to remember. Both of them are nearly identical. You should be okay with Brightspace. So a couple of things to recommend here. Again, you know, I'm not a fan of telling you what to use, because there's so many different variations out there. Oh, one thing too, if you're using a built-in webcam on your laptop, not only is the lighting a consideration, you might want to raise your laptop as well. Nobody wants to see up your nose. You've probably seen lots of video that way. So, you know, maybe raising the laptop a little bit and adjusting it that way. But the nice thing about a couple of the camera substitutes that I'm going to propose is that you can actually play with the positioning of the camera. So maybe putting the camera a bit further away from you, not having the camera facing you directly. Let me just switch over to my camera so you have a visual of what I'm saying. If you like this look better, it works for me. So that's an alternative. But the nice thing about the camera that I'm using, again, I'm using my phone for this, is that you can also have it wireless. You can run it wirelessly. I think it's asking for trouble. I have mine sort of plugged in, so it's using it, the cable not only to transmit the data, but it's also using it to power the camera as well. So you don't have to deal with battery, and it doesn't have to be the latest the latest phone. It doesn't hurt, of course, but you know, again, the technology of camera phones cameras and phones has definitely improved more than the cameras inside of laptops. So, you know, even if you're using a phone that's a couple of years old, you're probably going to be well served. So maybe you can repurpose your old technology. So with that said, let me show you the first one as a way to go, possibly. This is the first one. This is actually what I'm using. Like I mentioned before, it's basically software that turns your phone into a camera, a webcam. It has two components to it. All of these have two components, whether you use this one or the one that I'm going to cover after. The idea is that there's an app that you download on your phone, whether it's an iPhone or Android. This software will work. The only limitation of this specific piece of software is that your desktop, your laptop or your desktop needs to be a PC. This will not support plugging this into a Mac. The next one will. So that's the one that I'm using. The app basically costs $10, and it turns your phone into a 4K camera. So whether you want to use it for, like you see on the left-hand side, Zoom, Skype, and so on and so forth, it works basically across the board. Adobe Connect, of course, and so on and so forth. But again, any phone will do, $10 app, but it needs to plug into a PC. For the Mac users or the Mac desktop users, of course, it can be a laptop. This is one that you might consider. This is actually completely free. So maybe this is better. This you can plug into your Mac. Again, you might want to use the built-in camera. If you run some tests, definitely run some tests, see what you get. If you're happy with the result, you're off to the races. You don't need to have another camera. But a lot of people, again, to have the flexibility of having a higher quality cam or the flexibility of being able to reposition your camera is kind of nice. So again, this is called Epoch Cam. This is free. Again, the links are inside of the PowerPoint presentation that you'll find at the lower left of your screen. So if you have not grabbed it, go ahead and grab it. And there's links to it in there. So again, works extremely well, completely free. Now, once you have your camera, again, if you're happy with the camera that you have built in, or maybe you got one off Amazon or something, you might want to record yourself. That's where you have a lot of choices. And again, I do recommend, if you have any specific question, let me go ahead and switch back into here. You've got my email at the bottom left of your screen. If you just want to, run your choice by me, if you want to see if I've ever used it before, I do have some experience with different products that I've tested and I've sort of gravitated towards over the years. But again, if you're happy with the product that you have, if it does the job, that's a product for you, really. That's the way to go. So let me show you a couple of ways that you can record yourself or test out your webcam if you want. Again, the very first way I showed you inside of Brightspace right away. You'll remember that I put something inside of my overview. Let me go ahead and switch back to my browser here. I put stuff inside of my overview, so that's a good way to test your camera. Again, very simple, but it's not the only way to do this. And let me show you a couple of ways. This is a website. Again, some of you might not be able to install things on your machine, so that is a limitation. So I'd like to propose to you a couple of products that are web-based, so you don't have to do any installation whatsoever. So this, you'll have the link inside of the PowerPoint presentation. This is called Video Recorder. You can see from the screen that, well, you see the picture-in-picture. That's because that's what is coming out of my camera feed right now. So, but very simple to use. You can actually just click on the record button. It records for a while. I will click on stop. You're limited to 45 minutes. You can play that back. You can trash it, try again, or you can hit save. Now, I have a little pop-up on my screen. You can't see that when I hover over save, but let me tell you what it says. It says that it wants to download something called My Video. It has the date, it has the time, and it's in MP4 format. So again, the magic format that we look for in terms of video. Again, an MP4. I don't think I can find something that cannot play an MP4. PCs, Mac, phones, Brightspace loves them. So again, MP4 is the way to go for video as the final product. So again, this can record yourself. You're limited to 45 minutes. That should be enough. And you can download it as an MP4. There's another one inside of your resources in your PowerPoint presentation. Well, this, you can basically see what it does. It lets you record as well. So again, these are browser-based recording methods. Quite nice. Again, you're probably going to be prompted the very first time that you use them to allow access to your webcam. So it's your turn to, pull off the tape, maybe. But other than that, it's quite simple to use. So again, these are ways that you can record. Now, you might say, well, Gilles, I'm not going to be perfect on the first shot, so I might need to edit myself. Editing, again, you might want to contact me. Again, I'm not a big fan of telling you what to do, but this is one recommendation. If you have nothing else, this is called OpenShot. It's completely free. You might notice that there's a theme to what I'm proposing. Most of them are browser-based, and they're free, and they're multilingual as well. That's not to say that the commercial products, that you pay for, don't work well. I've seen people record things with Snagit. If you're a fan of Snagit for capturing images, the latest versions are quite good at capturing video as well. So I've been quite impressed. If you don't know Snagit, the same company makes Camtasia. Camtasia basically is sort of the Rolls-Royce, the Cadillac of screen recording software. It's been around for a really long time. The license is about $200 and some. I don't think you need that, but I mean, if it's in the budget, I mean, you can't go wrong with that product. It's probably the leading commercial application for recording yourself and editing as well. So it can edit, you can put transitions, you can put annotations, and you can do all those things. But again, $200. I think that most of the free products do a really good job as well. So again, if you have, if you want to bat around some alternatives or something, just send me a quick email and I'll guide you if I can. But this is OpenShot. Again, you can see from the interface that it's quite friendly. Mac PC and completely free. It will let you slice and dice. So if there's something that you need to remove, if the Amazon delivery comes to the door right while you're recording and you'd like to remove that segment, then you can do so. A lot of software or a lot of alternatives let you remove things from the beginning, the end, but the middle is a bit trickier. So having some kind of tool to allow you to do this is a way to go. Or you might do a better job the second time you do it. That's also an alternative. So this is another alternative in terms of editing. Now, there's only a few more things that I would like to recommend to sort of like to finish things off a little bit. One is you might want to go audio only. I'm working on a serial podcast. There's actually 6 episodes, and it works really well. So if you want to build something, you want to build a narrative, it works well. So if you want to record yourself in terms of video or audio only, I would say that probably the best choice for you is called Audacity. Audacity has been used. Again, you need to be able to install this on your laptop. So if you have a school laptop that you can install things, that's a little bit trickier. It is possible to do that, but there's a few more hoops that you have to jump through. But this, again, has been used by people for years and years. Mac and PC, very high quality, will record multiple source. And usually if somebody's going to be recording themselves, nice, quiet at home, I would recommend Audacity for recording audio only. So if you're wondering if you want to go one step above, so if we have some people that are a little bit more techie, I don't want to say more techie. It's another piece of software that I will recommend. The very last one, it's the one that I use and I love, and it's called OBS Studio. Again, works on a PC, works on a Mac. It's used by all the cool kids. So if you see people streaming themselves on Twitch, asking for donations while there's a chat window and they're playing a video game, chances are they're using OBS Studio. Super powerful, lots of little bells and whistles, but really you don't need all of its functionality. I've used it for years and years to record my screen. It's a screen recorder like nothing else. Basically just disappears, melts away, and whatever is on your screen, it will record faithfully, can save as an MP4. Works really nicely. Like I said, you know, it has some advanced functionality, which is really not that hard to master because it is such a popular piece of software. You can get like 1 million YouTube videos that will teach you how to use it in about 20 minutes. So the reason I recommend, well, I recommend it as a screen recorder is that it allows you to do multiple things. So if you're wondering how I'm switching from my camera feed, so this is me. Notice that there's a nice little overlay of graphics with my contact information, also the AutoEU logo on the opposite side. I can easily switch to my browser. I can switch to my full monitor. I can switch to PowerPoint and back again. So that's the idea, is that it gives you sort of that capability. Again, OBS Studio is completely free. So, you know, if you can download and install things, I think that it would be worth your time. I would recommend this. Let's say you're doing something, you want to solve formulas or equations or something. There's a lot of people who think, well, you know, I'm going to use a camera, I'm going to flip it upside down, I'm going to use like a marker or something. It works, but really there's limitation because it fights for the focus because your hand is obstructing the page. Whether it's legible or not depends on the camera, the lighting. There's all kinds of things. I find that, you know, or what we do usually in studio is you use whatever application you can doodle or you can draw with. Usually I would recommend something that's free, and you basically record that while you're drawing. So it's the best of both worlds. Everything is kept nice and sharp that way. So I think that rounds off. Let me just switch back to PowerPoint here. Hopefully your questions are being answered by the glorious Gilles Doiron in the chat pod. Again, I'm trying not to address things because we are recording this session. There will be some questions and answers at the end as well. If your questions are not answered by then, let me switch over to the session outline. And I think that covers everything that I wanted to cover today. So again, make sure that you grab the PowerPoint presentation that's in the bottom left of your screen. Again, lots of resources in there in terms of downloading. But again, you know, it's a big world of software out there. Everybody's vying for alternatives. There's one that is new. Actually, I can tell you this if you want to investigate that. I haven't fully investigated it, so I can't recommend it. But what I've seen is nice. It's called Microsoft Stream. It's part of your Office 360 or 365 subscription. It's part of everything else like Word and PowerPoint. Of course, it's made by Microsoft, but it also it runs in your browser and allows you to record your screen as well. It's quite nice. You know, there are some limitations in terms of length, but it might be a viable solution as well. So again, you know, if you have any questions regarding those technologies, I think, you know, again, I'm going to put back my contact information if you want to send me a quick email, or on the very last slide of the PowerPoint presentation, there's also the contact info for the TLSS, and we will definitely guide you if we can.